Whether at home or work, life is about relationships. Welcome to Small Change, Big Dividends with your host, Branch Isole. Small Change, Big Dividends shares steps, tools, and tips for personal career and spiritual growth. So please welcome the host of Small Change, Big Dividends, Branch Isole.
If you're familiar with the world of podcasting or programs that host life coaches and lifestyle gurus, you've probably heard the term life-work balance. But what does this mean? I have a place to live. I have a job or a career, both of which keep me constantly juggling relationships, issues, opportunities of success or failure. For many today, the issue is their life-work balance is out of balance. So let me ask you, how much time in your day do you have for you, just for you, without being responsible for others, at home, at work? Not much, right? How much time in your day is free from a task, free from a demand, free from an errand or a chore? A window of time without commitment to family, work, fellowship, community, or social group. Is your daily life a blur? Since we can't create more time, is it possible to have more time? Well, the answer is yes, if you have a toolbox for success. Tools that you can use to address the people, activities, issues, and problems that tend to sideline your dreams, your goals, your ambitions. Today, I'm going to give you that toolbox with takeaway actions that will work in any situation. So stay tuned. Coming to you from deep in the forest, near the banks of the Ouachita River, you're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends on the Bold Brave Media TV and Talk Global Network. I'm your host, Branch Isole. Small Changes, Big Dividends is a show where your questions are part of the program. So if you have a question, you can call during our live show to our toll-free number, 1-866-451-1451. Or you can email a question anytime during the week to my website, branchisole.com. Thanks for joining me today. Each week, I share mana'o with listeners from around the world. On Small Changes, Big Dividends, we talk about personal, career, and spiritual Christianity essentials for growth-filled living. Today, I'm going to share some small changes that can pay big dividends in your relationships and in your life. Because whether at home or work, life is about relationships. But it's healthy relationships that encourage and embrace growth. Before we get into today's show, I'm trying to battle an oncoming cold. So if I happen to break away to sneeze or cough, please accept my apologies before we get going. As humans, we are all creatures of habit, meaning we learn aspects, elements, and processes which we then hone, adjust, manipulate, maybe just plain practice until they work for us. And when we experience success, we continue to use those templates time and again in every situation with the expectations that we will again be successful. Today, I'm going to share 3 distinct sets of takeaways, tools, and steps that you can start using immediately at the end of this episode in your life and in your relationships. 14 key steps for better guidance and control of your daily life. So get your pen and paper ready. In our toolbox, we'll identify 5 motivations behind every decision, 5 pillars of healthy relationships, and 4 elements for success at home and work. Believe it or not, throughout your day, every day, while you're interacting with friends, family, business associates, clients, even new acquaintances, every decision you make is predicated on one or more of 5 motivations. They are need, want, status, love, and fear of loss. Let me repeat those: need, want, status, love, and fear of loss. You see, for thousands of years, most of humanity was concerned with only two: need and fear of loss. The need for food, shelter, clothing, needed essentials to survive, and fear from danger or death. With the advent of communities, the other three, want, status, and love, established their presence among mankind's coveted desires. If we examine every option, every choice, every decision we have in daily life, we'll find that every action we take is grounded in one or more of these 5. Why? Because humans, as a group, like other animal species, normally operate within certain bounds and behaviors. As creatures of habit, the primary difference between humans and other species is our brain's ability to quickly analyze, rationalize, or think critically about our options. And today, with technology literally at our fingertips, we have access to the world's knowledge, the world's systems, the world's processes, and creative imaginations. And yet we live in a time like no other in human history. So how can our days be so full of stress, struggle, and conflict? Well, many people fail to identify, to think about, or become aware that they are and have motivational powers behind their daily decisions. So the next time you have a choice or a decision confronting you, before you answer, before you respond, stop. Identify which one of these 5 motives, need, want, status, love, or fear of loss, is moving your thoughts in a specific direction. Then ask yourself, why am I about to respond in the way that I am? Meaning, what is my motivation? Which one of those 5 is it? Once you've identified the motive, you can respond, answer, or act in your best interest. Why? Because by identifying which one leads you to the outcome that you anticipate, we can then ask ourselves, must I have it? Meaning need. Can I get it? Meaning want. Will it move my life forward in a way I desire, in the time that I have, and by the perceptions of others? Status. Love. Can I share this with someone I trust or care about? And fear of loss. How or what do I have to do to avoid pain or loss? You see, behind each choice, behind every decision, one or more of these 5 is active. And our task is to quickly identify which is in our best interest in this current situation, and what direction or action is required to produce results, either short term or long term. So, how do we become more proficient in identifying these 5? Well, if you watch this program, you already know. The answer is practice, practice, practice. We identify which one is present when we are in the stop think mode before responding, and it's in this momentary pause that allows us a response to become laser focused, not only in its identification, but more importantly, to provide the action most appropriate for success with a particular person, a particular event, or circumstance. You see, if you've ever been in or seen negotiations between 2 or more parties with opposing interests, be it in business, commerce, politics, relations committees, or groups, not only does this process take time, there are often deliberate pauses or recesses and times out to confer. Seldom is there a snap or immediate decision or response. Why? Well, considerations take time before answering. Your life, your relationship is just as important, even more so, actually. So there's nothing wrong with taking a moment's pause before answering or responding, particularly if it's in a tense situation. It happens every day to those who understand and recognize that consequences that are reacted to too quickly sometimes are not in our best interest. Let's turn for a moment and talk about our behind the veil response or action, the one that can guarantee more additional or continued success. Remember, looking behind the veil reveals the why in a particular situation. And within every relationship or life scenario, when we know the why behind our response, we better understand the how of our actions or what our response can be with a particular person, event, or circumstance. So, how do we engage in this process? How do we make it more automatic? Practice, practice, practice. Let me give you an example. If you drive, how did you learn to parallel park? Whether you drive or not, how did you learn your multiplication tables? How did you learn to dance? How did you learn to cook a favorite meal? How? Practice, practice, practice. You see, the more we practice a skill or talent, the more proficient we can become, and the easier that task is to repeat comfortably. And the more comfortable we are, the more success we enjoy. The more success we have, the greater our sense of self-worth, and the more confident our self-image becomes. Practice repetition of success can reduce the time between our choice or decision and our response moment. I had a coach in high school who said, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And people at the top of their profession, their industry, or their vocation know this fact intimately. Why? Because winners in life don't succeed and then sit on their hands. They come to realize that staying on top is often harder than getting there. Why is this? Because being on top means you become the object of every rival, the target of all your competitors. So winners at the top of their game practice until perfect, and then they practice even more. We're going to take our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to look at our second set of tools for successful living. You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends on the Bold Brave Media TV and Talk Global Network. I'm your host, Branch Isole. I'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends. I'm your host, Branch Isole. Our second set of tools are the foundational pillars of healthy relationships. Here's what they are: love, approval, agenda, trust, and spiritual grounding. Our first relationship pillar is love, because at our core, each of us is love. See, love is the manner and motivation behind life's essence, and therefore, everyone is capable of giving and receiving love. Love is most often exhibited through actions in greater measure than by words alone. And if there is one truism about love that's often missed or misunderstood, it's that love is an action word, meaning how we respond to those we claim to care about or care for is about how our responses are received. You see, we all innately recognize the actions of love. You don't need to tell people what love looks like. Once they've experienced, they know. But likewise, many learn from experience the actions of unloving behavior. And unloving behavior is also easily identified. Why? Because we all grew up experiencing unloving actions, someplace, sometime from someone. And the actions of unloving behavior become well known and familiar to those who've experienced abusive relationships. Have you ever wondered how we know what it is we want? Oftentimes, the easiest way to decide what we want is to recognize what we don't want. If you have a list of desires, the fastest way to whittle down that list is to identify which ones you can live without. And when you know what you don't want, those are easily eliminated. In relationships, these are identified as red flags. And red flag behaviors are those we no longer want to experience and therefore desire to live without in the future. Knowing and eliminating abusive behaviors makes our new list of options easier to weigh one against another. You see, when we come out of a relationship, we're usually able to recognize those behaviors or actions we disliked about a previous partner. These are often easier to identify or recall after a relationship breakup. They are fresh in our minds. So when we start a new relationship, the easiest way to know what we now want or will tolerate is to know by recall what we don't want and won't tolerate. This is a process of how we become more attuned to recognize the red flags in our lives, particularly in our relationships. But remember, the benefit of red flags is paying attention as soon as they appear. It's the power of red flags that is not only to acknowledge them, but more importantly, to heed them. Red flags can become benchmarks for growth, but only if we recognize and heed them, and the earlier the better. By recognizing red flag actions from past relationships, we more easily avoid future relationship adversities. Our second pillar in a healthy relationship is approval. Why? Well, because we all crave approval, first from our parents, then from our peers, and finally from the world at large. But approval has two sides, acceptance and rejection, and we all crave acceptance. Here's a simple fact. No one likes to hear the word no. Why? If we're crippled by insecurities and we hear the word no, we absorb it as a personal rejection. But when we start to understand that the word no only refers to what we're offering or requesting, and it's not about us personally, we can hear the word no all day long and simply move on to our next opportunity for success. If you've ever been in sales, you've heard the adage, every no gets you closer to a yes, but only when you no longer fear rejection associated with the word no. Number 3 on our healthy relationship model is agenda. Now, understanding the importance of agenda is pivotal in separating out the emotions from a pending decision. And this key element is often missed because most people are unaware that everyone who comes into our life has an agenda. They want or need or desire something from us, or they want, need, or desire us to do something for them. Now, this is not negative. This is how we all operate with each other. You see, each of us has a skill, a talent, a purpose that others need, want, or desire. Agenda activities is what all of our interactions and relationship building are about. It's the person who misses this important point who feels they're being taken advantage of. Well, they aren't. They're simply not entering into each new or next opportunity or next relationship, admitting that they too have an agenda they'd like fulfilled. And there can become a feeling of guilt that can play on the mind by not admitting to this, particularly for those who are still grappling with insecurities. When you know what your agenda need is, you can quickly discern if another person or persons can help you fill it or not. If it's a match, find a solution that works for both agendas. If not, simply smile, say thanks, and move on. You see, when agendas match, solutions are the result. Now, I want you to think of these three we just talked about: love, approval, and agenda as three legs on your life's easel. Our fourth point in a healthy relationship is trust. And trust is the cross piece on your easel, the piece that holds up the picture of your life. Trust is the healthy relationship's essential support piece. Without trust, our life's picture is seldom stable. With active trust, confidence levels can be fully functional. And every healthy relationship, whether at home or work, is built on trust. It's that simple. With trust, you have every possibility. Without trust, you soon discover you have nothing. Because when trust is broken, the chances of recovery can be extremely difficult, if not impossible. Trust is the essential function at the heart of healthy relationships. Our fifth and final point is spiritual grounding. And although spiritual grounding is essential in life's endeavors, it exists for many people beneath the surface, or is often ignored or missed altogether. You see, spiritual grounding is the all-important chain connecting our easel's back support leg. It supports and connects to our trust crosspiece. Again, the one that's holding up the picture of our life. Now, people often ask, which is the support leg? The one that's leaning back connected to the change? Well, it can be any one of the first three: love, approval, or agenda. Because these three are always there. They are the three legs of our life's easel. And the support leg, again, the one leaning back, can be whichever one of the three, love, approval, or agenda, that we may be currently struggling with on any given day, with any given person, circumstance, or event. It's the one that needs spiritual support at the moment. So simply said, all five, love, approval, agenda, trust, and spiritual grounding, are necessary for balance and strength. Now you have the five motivations behind your thoughts and actions and a structural support for daily living. Our final set of navigation tools are 4 elements for success that you can use in any situation. No matter your job, no matter your position, no matter your responsibilities at home or work. These 4 can guide your success. They are stability, motion, direction, and power. Think of it like this. You want to buy a sailboat, and down at the dock are 4 identical boats, except the first one has no keel, so it has no stability. Its flat bottom makes it unstable in the water. The second one has a keel for stability and sails for forward motion, but it has no reserve power, so it relies only on the external push from the wind for its forward movement. And without the wind, you simply drift. The third boat has a keel, sails, and a rudder. So now we have stability, motion, and directional capabilities. We can now steer. We can chart a course to our dreams, our goals, and our ambitions. The fourth boat has a keel, sails, a rudder, and a motor for power, even if there is no wind. This is the boat that you want, the one with stability, motion, direction, and power. These four together will give you the capabilities to cruise successfully in any situation at home or work. Now you have three sets of tools or rungs on your ladder of success that will provide the necessities to build a solid framework for your relationships and your life at home or work. We're going to take our second break. And when we come back, I'm going to answer a question from a listener who asks, why are Christians so unchristlike? You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends on the Bold Brave Media TV and Talk Global Network. I'm your host, Branch Isole. I'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends. I'm your host, Branch Isole. I had a question this week from a listener who asked, why do so many Christians act so unchristlike? Well, Mahatma Gandhi was asked this question, and he stated, I like your Christ, I don't like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. Now, this comment has been voiced by many over the last 2,000 years, and it's easy to see four common misunderstandings about Christians and their spiritual walk, even among Christians themselves. Many think their spiritual walk is one and done. This is referenced in Luke 9:23. Many Christians find themselves in need and may ask for relief, intervention, or help from the Lord. And when it arrives, many believe their part is finished. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. When we ask and God responds, that's just the first step. The challenge for us as receivers of His grace for relief or His blessing is to then emulate the words and examples of Christ in our own lives going forward. This is the second part, the doing part of going forward, that holds the most important place in our equation. Similar to our consequence part in our choice and consequence. It's this second part that now playing and paying it forward is the next part. And this is the part that's often forgotten or ignored. Another misunderstanding, especially among more established or heavy on the quoting of scripture type of Christians, is they often have an interesting way of inferring it's their way or the highway. And this attitude usually runs deep among many modern-day Pharisaic Christians. Those intent on impressing you with the harshness of their answer or suggestion, rooted in scripture that they parrot about your sinful behavior. The third fallacy is that priests, pastors, and popes are the exclusive mediators between the people and God. You see, the truth is many Christians really don't know much about acquiring spiritual guidance, using spiritual strength, or attaining spiritual salvation. They listen to clerics who spew about a relationship with God that's attainable only through them in the church. Occasionally, it may include elders or others, but ultimately, it's their ecclesiastic leadership that's best for you. They conveniently omit Christ Himself or the fact that you can contact Christ directly without intervention of ordained clerics. You see, it's Jesus who is ever ready to receive every new or returning believer. Many postmodern Christians think that God's purpose is to benefit their path and pursuit of wealth and possessions as some sort of blessing. Now, they're willing to give God the glory and the credit, but only after He has blessed them financially or advanced their career pursuits. And it might behoove those purpose-driven Christians to revisit Mark 6:24 or Luke 16:13. You see, the quintessential question for every self-proclaimed Christian is not, do I know Christ? The question is, do I emulate Christ by my actions? Meaning, are my responses moral and ethical? The more Christ-like we choose to become, the more Christian we actually become in God's eyes, in our own, and in the eyes of the world's Mahatma Gandhis. If you have a question you'd like answered on Small Changes, Big Dividend, email it to my website, branchisole.com. In last week's prophecy segment, I described the timing of the coming Ezekiel war and the treaty or covenant that will be signed between Israel and many nations. These are the two final actions that God has promised the entire world will witness before the 7 years of tribulation. But why are these dates so important to us as believers and followers of Christ Jesus? Well, simply said, the coming tribulation years will offer two escapes from this world. One, with Christ during the rapture. The second, with the Antichrist. You see, eternal life or death will hang in the balance of that decision for everyone alive. Starting on May 14, 1948, God allowed the prince of this world to increase his presence and influence through the world's efforts to draw us into selfishness by our behaviors and responses. And most, or many, simply see what's happening in our world today as the world being the world. Yet it's easy to examine the data to see the increase in severity, frequency, and intensity of death and destruction we see unfolding, as well as man's inhumanity to others, which has become heightened and widespread. You see, God has warned in the end times the weather, the politics, and the social anomalies will be exactly as described in Matthew 24. And going forward, we can be assured that the damage and destruction across the planet will increase, affecting untold numbers of people. Today, I'm going to share two prophetic clues about the end times and last days timetable. For 1,040 days, that's 34 and a half months, between January 21st, 2025, next month, and April 27, 2027, our world will experience many changes, politically, socially, and economically. And in the last 10 days of April 2027, the Ezekiel war will take place, followed by 7 months of treaty negotiations. And at the end of that 7-month period, the 7-year tribulation will begin. So keep those minds in date as you yourself witness the end time events starting to unfold. If you'd like to know more about prophetic alerts, I welcome you to visit my Spiritual Christianity with Branch Isole Facebook page. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we'll talk about next week. You're watching and listening to Small Changes, Big Dividends. I'm your host, Branch Isole. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me today. Next week, I'm going to share the Cliff's Notes version of acquiring spiritual grounding and using spiritual strength. We'll start at the back of the book. On Small Changes, Big Dividends, we discuss personal, career, and spiritual Christianity essentials for growth-filled living. If you know someone who could benefit from today's show, please share it with them. If today's episode has been interesting for you, please give us a rating and review. And to know more about my work, I invite you to visit my website, branchisole.com, or my YouTube channel, Branch Isole. Today's show has been sponsored by Crystal Creek Farm. If you have a business, a product, or a service you'd like to share with the world on Small Changes, Big Dividends, send your inquiry to the website. Until next week, keep growing and be in the world, not of the world.
What if you could discover a deeper spiritual truth, free from the constraints of organized religion? Introducing the Spirituality Series, a 5-book collection that offers a fresh, honest approach to spirituality. These stories are not about religion, they're about truth. For seekers, searchers, and those who have fallen away from traditional beliefs, this series is a guide to spiritual relationships that transcend doctrine. Explore 5 powerful themes: meaning, purpose, expression, fellowship, and choice. Each book reveals new ways to understand and embrace spirituality in daily life, without the influence of mainstream religion. Whether you're searching for deeper meaning or simply curious about the role of spirit in your life, these books will guide you to a fulfilling spiritual path, one that is grounded in the teachings of Jesus Christ, but free from the limitations of any specific faith. Experience spiritual growth through personal stories, practical insights, and poetic reflections designed to awaken your soul. Start your journey today with the Spirituality Series. Free from religion, full of truth. Get your copy today.
This has been Small Change, Big Dividends. When you're ready for healthier, more successful relationships at home or work, Small Change, Big Dividends is your show. Wednesdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.